Okay, Mr. Ellis? We're going to get going here. Okay, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to our Municipal Council Combined Meeting for Monday, December 22nd, 2008. At this time, I'd like to call this meeting to order and invite you to join us for our Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Deal?
Here.
Councilmember Griffin-Usack? Here. Councilmember Mascola?
Here.
Councilmember Massaro?
Here.
Councilmember Perelstein?
Here.
Councilmember Dr. Prasad? Councilmember Resigliano?
Here.
Adequate notice, please.
Adequate notice of this meeting, as required by the Open Public Meetings Act of 1975, has been provided by an annual notice sent to the Home News Tribune, the Star Ledger, and the Sentinel on December 13, 2007, and posted in the main lobby of the municipal complex on the same date. An additional notice was sent on December 11, 2008, changing the time of the meeting.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Because we have some professionals here, I've just been instructed by our counselor that it would be best at this time to go into a brief closed session. At this time, I'd like to call for a motion to go into closed session.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Madam Clerk, could you read that for us, please?
Whereas Article 6 of the Open Public Meetings Act provides that a public body may hold a closed session, and whereas the Township Council will, during this meeting, enter in discussion of the following matters: litigation, L.A. Dreyfus Company, contract negotiations, AFSCME. Whereas the matters to be discussed in closed session are to remain in the strictest of confidence by all council members in furtherance of their fiduciary duties to the Township of Edison. Now therefore be it resolved, matters discussed at this meeting will be released to the public when the reasons for discussing and acting upon them in closed session no longer exists.
Thank you, ma'am. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, do we have a motion to reconvene?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, folks, let's move on to our review of the minutes. We have several meetings listed there. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, I'll move on to the 2009 municipal budget, public hearing on the amendment. Any questions or comments?
Council President?
Sir?
Ultimately, this is in the form of a question, but I came here this evening, as you know, with an amendment prepared to reduce the amount to be raised by taxes. I did it clearly, I did it deliberately, and I did it what I thought was a good focus. My conversation with Mr. Morrison and Mr. Lair prior to the start of the meeting leads me to believe that this may not be the opportune or the correct time, rather, not the opportune time, but the correct time to put that amendment before this council for a vote. I'd like to ask Mr. Lair and/or Mr. Morrison, through you, what their views are on that, sir.
Sure.
Council President, the amendment that has been presented through Councilman Massaro actually makes certain assumptions. That the assumption is that the amendment that we had introduced 2 weeks ago actually would be in place and adopted. The fact that it has not yet, that amendment has not yet been certified by the director precludes our ability, actually, we certainly can have a public hearing on that amendment, but we can't adopt it because it hasn't yet been certified. And therefore, the other amendment that is before you certainly cannot even be introduced until we adopt the First Amendment, if that's the inclination of this council. So I just want you to understand the progression that until that First Amendment, if it's going to be adopted, is actually adopted, you couldn't move on the other amendment because it assumes the movement of monies from one place to the other based upon that First Amendment.
Mr. Council
Sir.
President, if I could, I understand what Mr. Lair said. I think in councilman's language, in English, that translates to until the existing amendment is accepted by DLGS, that this amendment that I've authored it wouldn't be appropriate.
Correct.
So that there would be a subsequent time to look at further amending the budget to reduce the tax hike. So my question then would be, when would that date
Okay.
be?
Assuming that the Director of Local Government Services approves this amendment, certifies it, this council could then adopt that. Let's assume it's done before the meeting on the 14th of January, that the Division of Local Government Service certifies it, it's sent back. This council could then adopt, if that's their inclination, adopt that. Your amendment technically could be introduced that evening, once that amendment is adopted.
Okay. Council President again?
Sure.
Mr. Morrison, you worked carefully with me on preparing that amendment and putting it in proper form. Does all of this square with what you know?
Yes, sir. I made a phone call down to the Division of Local Government Services this morning to confirm their policy on this, and in layman's term, it's basically one open amendment at a time.
Okay. So therefore, Council President, if I may continue? Sure, sir. Therefore, essentially on Christmas Eve, we need not deal with the merits of this amendment, but we can with certainty I can mark my calendar for a time when we will be looking at the merits of this amendment.
Yes, sir.
And that would be the next meeting in January, January 12, 14, like that.
Assuming that the prior amendment is certified at that point.
And if it's not certified, it would certainly be the next meeting.
Yes. No further action on the budget can be taken until that amendment is certified. So the budget is on hold.
Exactly, and the amendment is on hold, so this delay doesn't kill it, it
No,
just
sir.
simply delays it.
Yes, sir.
That's all, sir. Thank you, Council President.
Thank you, sir.
Council President?
Yes, ma'am.
Does that mean that we were going to be tabling anything to do with the budget tonight?
Well, it seems to me that it really wouldn't make sense to, until it's certified, to have a public hearing on the amendment. I mean, how do the other council members feel? I would like to have a public hearing when we can either adopt or not adopt, not necessarily, talk about it and then wait for a certification that may or may not come. What does everybody else think?
Yeah, well, may I?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. If there's nothing we can act upon, and it's not going to be until next year, then unless the public portion would be open again in January, but if you close the public portion, would it be open again?
Well, the only thing we've done, Councilwoman, is we've actually put a newspaper notice out there to the public that there will be a public hearing on this amendment this evening. So that's the only reason why I say you may want to do that for the benefit of the public, that you
Right.
already did advertise for it. So,
But then would the public be disallowed to
Well-
speak in January, whenever we get it from,
technically, if you heard all the comments tonight and then you closed the public portion, all you would be waiting for would be the certification from the director. You could then move on it on the 12th of January. I'm not telling you, if you certainly can open the public hearing tonight because you advertised for it. But if you don't want to close the public portion, you don't have to. But
Which we've
yeah, I
done,
would say there could
Which
be a
we've done.
continuation, right?
right? Which we've done. Go ahead, ma'am.
I was just saying that once we have the other piece and we're able to move forward and get things going officially, that would seem to be the most appropriate time.
It would seem to
To
make
move on.
most sense, rather than talk about it, have other things happen, and then perhaps talk about something else.